Hey, this is Taylor for the Module 5 Self-Reflection on Interprofessional Collaboration. The clinical experience that comes to mind that sticks out in my head about interprofessional collaboration is a certain IEP meeting that I went to when I was the clinician and I was working in a high school, but I did just want to make note that I think that all IEP meetings are great examples of interprofessional collaboration because you have to work with such a broad range of professionals when in that setting, especially at eligibility committees and taking in the information from all of the testing that's being done by all the different professionals, including like socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds that's provided by the social worker. All of that ties into their eligibility, and in addition to just the parent alone, really taking into account their concerns, and then putting in our piece as a related service. It really is a great way to become educated on all of those different professions and allows you to build skills on collaborating with those professions as well. For my certain example, my student that I was working with was in the 10th grade going up to 11th, and they were becoming up to the time for a new IEP meeting. We were working towards a new IEP, and I wanted to create goals that were more vocational based because we had been working on basic fine motor goals for a few years. The student was new to me the year that we were writing this IEP, and the IEP previously had pretty old goals that had been continued consistently, which is another separate issue, but I wanted to update what we were working on because the student was getting older and we were starting to move into a different part of life and looking at transition planning for the student. So you want to start looking at functional skills and what's coming after high school. It's not always going to be there in high school and they're a student. So you want to start looking at what's next. And so that was my proposal for the IEP. And I wrote goals that went along with that, and my supervising OT reviewed them and agreed, and we put that into the IEP with a collaboration from the teacher about how that would be implemented into their school day and what that would look like. So at the IEP meeting, the people that were involved were myself, my supervising OT, the parent. The parent brought an advocate, which was their ABA therapist, and then there was the special education teacher, a general education teacher representative, and then an LEA, which was the assistant principal, and then the speech therapist was there as well, because the student received speech therapy. So over the course of the IEP meeting, we reached the goals that OT was proposing, and we reviewed those, and the parent wasn't totally in agreement with what we were proposing, especially since we had been working on a set skill set for so long. They were having trouble adjusting over to this new view of what we wanted to do. So that did provide the opportunity for us to gently educate the parent on the scope of OT and what all we can do to help the child and progress them through their educational career, even into life outside of high school. So after we had collaborated as a team, we had all members of the team putting their input in on our goal, but still respecting our perspective as the professionals in terms of why we were working on those goals, what skills needed to be developed to achieve those goals, but the special education teacher was saying how those skills would help in the classroom in addition to how they could implement the tasks that we were going to work on into the day to day, so that there was more carryover. And we got input from the speech therapist about how communication could be included. It was just turned into basically a giant brainstorming session, which was awesome. And the parent became more agreeable to our proposal. And eventually, we all agreed on what we thought was best for the student, and it was signed into effect. So that was great. The two tools that I felt were the most important for this particular experience were our team mission embodies an interprofessional collaborative approach to patient-client care. So the IEP meeting completely is an interprofessional collaborative approach. Everyone's working together to create a program for a student to ensure that they are getting the best form of care, and it's completely client-centered, student-centered, and it is occupation-based because all of those skills are working towards their education and skills that are required for their education. And then the next one was respect among team members improves with our ability to work together. I felt that respect is very key to having effective collaborative interprofessional communication and collaboration. Without respect, we wouldn't have been able to come up with that IEP that we did, because it does take respect of someone's profession, their education, and their know-how to develop goals that are relevant to the patient or the student. And respect allows for that open communication. And then the additional tool that I found, or the one other interprofessional communication skill, was I found it on the competency list for healthcare workers. I think it was more directed towards geriatric care, but it is relevant for pediatrics. Some of the things that were listed under there were active listening, so paying attention to not only verbal but nonverbal communication, and that was key in that situation because my supervisor and I both noticed, we discussed it after the meeting, during kind of a debrief, was during our review of the goals. During the IEP meeting, we could tell the parent was not interested at all based off of her body language, facial expression, and so we kind of altered our approach as opposed to going into it super positive and super gung-ho, and we kind of changed how we were presenting it into more of, this is a baseline idea and we're looking for your input in addition to what we've seen throughout the school year. So that kind of changed how we approached the situation, which was good because it opened the floor up and made the parent not so on the offensive, but more like, okay, we're on the same team here. And then the other one that stuck out to me was consider negotiation, consultation, discussion, or debate. So this was important because this ties into what I just said. When you're collaborating, I feel that you shouldn't ever consider debating, especially in this situation in an IEP, unless it is data-driven, completely true. Debating puts the other party on the defensive and you're losing that active listening. So that's why we decided to pull back on our approach and kind of open it up for discussion and consultation with other team members so that we could get a more collaborative approach on the goals and also open communication, and build rapport and trust with that parent too as we move forward with the new IEP. So that is it for me. I hope everyone is staying well and safe and healthy.